Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to be talking about Final Night. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we're going to be reviewing The Final Night from DC Comics. Yes, it's kind of an old crossover, but it just got a new collection. I've never read it before, so I picked it up and wanted to talk about it with you guys. But before we get into the review, let me ask you to please do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, lets the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos. Hit that bell if you're really crazy about me. Now, The Final Night. What is this? Well, history with this is from 1996. This is a small event that DC Comics had, and I've only heard about it in passing, never read it before. I read this collection. I just knew that this is where Hal Jordan died, and Hal Jordan went to restore the sun because that was the lore that was introduced to me when I started reading Green Lantern Rebirth and Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern. I think I knew that a little bit before then, but it became like more prominent of like, this is where Hal died, that kind of stuff. So I just got in some Green Lantern collections of the Jeff Johns run, the books or whatever, book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. So I will be rereading those in the future, so I wanted to talk about The Final Night so we could have some perspective on what got retconned and stuff like that from this. So The Final Night is a storyline. It's only 4 issues long, but there's other stuff in here. There's a Parallax one-shot in here that kind of details Hal's decision to go and help the rest of the heroes, and then there's kind of an epilogue with Green Lantern number 81, which is the funeral, because this is where Hal Jordan dies. Now, he's not really in the story up until that last 2 issues, you know. The first couple of issues detail the Sun Eater coming to devour the sun, and because the sun is blocked off, you can see the Earth turns ice cold. Superman starts to lose his powers because, of course, he's solar powered. He gets his powers from the radiation from the yellow sun versus the red sun that's on Krypton, or was not on, but around Krypton. So you start to see the environment change throughout as we go through the storyline. So there's some weird things in here that, if you're a new DC Comics reader, I don't really know if you could pick this up and quite understand what was going on. This did take place in 1996, so the continuity's been changed and retconned and a whole bunch of stuff, many, many times since then. Not just from the New 52 and Rebirth and all that, but, there's stuff in here that I don't even know if they reference anymore, so maybe this is out of continuity, maybe it's not. It's kind of unclear, although I do think with the Rebirth stuff, everything was back in. But anyway, so at this time, the Justice League hadn't really been formed. Grant Morrison's JLA, I think, forms soon after this, and the Legion of Superheroes is stuck here. They're present in the storyline, and they're helping out. You have Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad and all these other guys that are somehow stuck in the 21st century. They're helping out. I don't really know if that was a major storyline in the DC universe at the time. I wasn't really reading comics. I was about 10 years old. I was probably getting into the idea of reading them. I was into Batman, the animated series, at this point. That I can tell you. So yeah, here's Lightning Lad powering up one of the generators and stuff like that. Guy Gardner is Warrior at this time. He's not a Green Lantern, so this is not him with the yellow ring. This is him when he has all these weird, like, alien tattoos. And I don't know if he was an alien at the time, like if he was descended from alien blood, or if this is something that he got imbued with. Again, this is the Warrior thing. And Hal Jordan is Parallax. He is a villain at this point in time. Here's Cyborg Superman down here. Not wearing the S-Shield, of course, but this takes place after the destruction of Coast City, which drives Hal Jordan crazy. That happens in the Return of Superman. And then that closely followed up about 30 issues before this took place, so about 3 years, give or take, is when Ron Marz decided to drive Hal Jordan crazy and make him become Parallax in order to introduce only one Green Lantern to the entire DC universe, being Kyle Rayner, who is in the story as well. So this is kind of classic 90s DC Comics here. So is it fun? Is it good? I don't really think so, and maybe that's why this storyline just kind of went meh over the last 25 years or so, because it's just meh. the threat is detailed in the first issue or two, but it's never really, you don't really like, they don't go up against it. I mean, they do, but it's all these kind of weird ways. It's never really detailed what a Sun Eater is, other than it's this weird energy that devours suns and other energy as well. It's kind of like a black hole. You know, the Spectre and the Phantom Stranger are involved, and they're kind of talking to each other, saying like, oh, we're not going to interfere in Earth's things. There's this other kid named Pharaoh, and I swear to God, I thought he was a Legion of Superheroes character named Pharaoh Lad. Maybe he was after this, but I'm only mentioning him because he tries to save the world on his own, and it's unclear what he's doing. You have people like the Ray that are here at this time with the weird Guy Garner looking jacket. Here we go. This guy. And, you know, Jack Knight Starman is still alive. So this is kind of just to put you like, oh, if you haven't heard of many of these characters, it's because they haven't been around in 25 years or so. So, I don't know. I'm kind of speechless. It's just kind of meh. You know, and then there's an idea at the end of issue number 3 that Kyle has to go ask Parallax Hal Jordan for his help. And then you get the entire Parallax special of him kind of like deciding to help and then going to say goodbye to everybody he knows. And it's like, this storyline up until this point wasn't a Hal Jordan storyline. Like, all this, nothing to do with Hal Jordan. And then all of a sudden, the rest of this story turns into a Hal Jordan story, because he decides to help in this issue. And then issue number 4 is when he actually goes and somehow all the Green Lantern energy he absorbed during Emerald Night, I think maybe it was called, all the Green Lantern energy he absorbed in Emerald Twilight. This is a old collection, actually. Yeah, it only has the 3 issues in which it took place here. Green Lantern 48, 49, and 50, which led to A New Dawn with Kyle Rayner. Somehow he's able to absorb all the Sun Eater energy and like kind of defeat it, kill it that way. It just seems kind of, I don't know, not cliche, but really easy, I guess. Really, really easy. And then, you know, then there's a funeral for him in Green Lantern 81, and they're all, you know, kind of talking about Hal as if he was involved the entire time. And it's like, you know, he was not really present for half of it. It's kind of a strange, bizarre story, and how it goes from a DC Universe story, and Lex Luthor's getting involved and trying to solve things, and they're trying to figure out what the Sun Eater is, what it's actually doing to the sun, to all of a sudden pivots very sharply to Hal Jordan and his involvement, and then his sacrifice at during Final Night number 4. So I think maybe this is why it went untalked about. It's not very good. It's not very, you know, I think it would have been stronger if it had been a Hal Jordan storyline from the very beginning instead of just the last half. I didn't even mention who wrote this or illustrated it. The illustrations are probably the best part. Carl Kiesel is the writer. Stuart Immonen provides a lot of the art. He does all of the art for the Final Night issues. Mike McKone does the art for the Parallax issue. And if you've read the Teen Titans by Jeff Johns, you certainly know who Mike McKone is. He's a phenomenal artist. It's interesting to see his, I don't know if he was like brand new to his career at this point in time, but his style is definitely there. Definitely looks like the Teen Titans stuff he would do with Jeff Johns, I think like 6 years later, something like that. So very, very, you know, good art here. And then you have Daryl Banks doing Green Lantern 81, and that's classic Kyle Rayner, Daryl Banks art. It's very good. Or that was Stuart Immonen, I'm sorry. But this Stuart Immonen, let's talk about Stuart Immonen. Here's the Daryl Banks stuff, if you can see it. Yes, this Stuart Immonen is not the one that you've read on All New X-Men. It's not the guy you read on Ultimate Spider-Man. It's not the guy who did Fear Itself. It's the same artist, but his style is completely different. This is the Stuart Immonen, if you've read Superman Secret Identity, this is more of that style. It's more realistic, it's less cartoony. I think later on he goes to refine his style a little bit, but I've also seen him do other work that's a lot more detailed than this too. I don't know if the man has, maybe he has multiple styles that he dips into depending on the story, but this is a very kind of classic, I mean, I would compare it right now to like Leonard Kirk, Luke Ross, who's the guy on Captain America with Brubaker, Steve Epting, you know, that kind of simplistic yet modern style. Not overly rendered, not too detailed or anything like that. And then he gets a lot more stylized. Next Wave is another Immonen book where he's very stylized. So I kind of enjoy his new style much more than I enjoyed this. Although that's not to say it's bad, it just wasn't as visually interesting as Stuart Immonen usually is that I've come to know and love. So, as for the writing, Carl Kessel, not much to say about it. It's just an okay story. I don't know if they were looking for an excuse to take Hal Jordan off the table, maybe because he was too powerful as a character once they figured out he could do this stuff, but they certainly did, and he didn't come back until Green Lantern Rebirth, probably 10 years later, something like that, almost 10 years later. He was there as the Spectre throughout after this. After this, he becomes the Spectre, but he's no longer Parallax. They remove that threat from the DC universe by making him, kind of go out a hero. So I'm interested to reread Jeff Johns' stuff to see how he retcons him sacrificing himself, because the main idea in Emerald Twilight was that he goes crazy because of the destruction of Coast City that happened in the Return of Superman, and this famous image on the back here with him with all the rings. He basically kills a bunch of Green Lanterns and takes their rings, doesn't care how it happens, and destroys the Guardians. It's a rampage. Some people regard this as the worst thing to happen to Hal Jordan ever, and that's why Hal Jordan had to come back thanks to Jeff Johns. But I think it was fine. I liked Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern. Many of us 90s kids did. But yeah, so I'm interested to reread the Jeff Johns stuff and see how he reconciles the sacrifice here with the Parallax entity he basically made up to retcon Hal Jordan, to give him a reason why he could be a hero again after he killed all those Green Lanterns. Basically, it was like mind control. He was infected. It wasn't really him. That superhero stuff that always happens to them. But yeah, there you go. Final Night, trade paperback. Should you read it? I don't think so. I think you can totally pass on this. You can totally read the Wikipedia article. I had just never read it. It's kind of cheap though. It's only $16. This is a fairly new trade. It's got the new logo on there. They're printed this year. So yeah, it's not that bad. The paper quality is the matte paper that they've been printing their older stuff on, which I think works because that's probably what was in the books at the time. No complaints about that. There's no complaints about spread pages or anything. It's a regular trade paperback. Feels classic, but is it a classic? No. Am I ever going to read this again? Probably not. But hey, if you're interested like me, I guess you can go read it. The art's good. That's probably the best thing I can say about it. Other than that, it's kind of a ho-hum story, but there you go. It's more of a context thing to the rest of the Green Lantern stuff that I'm about to reread eventually, right? Than it is necessarily you have to read this. It's a context thing. So there you go. That's my mild recommendation for The Final Night from DC Comics. Let me know what you guys think down below of the book, and we'll chat about it in the comments section. Thank you guys for watching. As always, we will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.